key, I think, to longevity in the world of authordom is very similar to the key in entrepreneurial businesses of all sorts, and it's about putting the real you in your brand, just like it is in real estate. It is as being an author, and that authenticity breaks through.
Well, hello and welcome back to Uncorking a Story. I'm your host, Mike Carlin, and today I want to talk about something that comes up often on the show, which is authenticity. I'll divulge something to you all. You'll hear it in this conversation, but a few years ago, I tried writing, I'm laughing even thinking about it. I tried writing a romance novel under a pen name. Look, I'll be honest, I was chasing some of that 50 Shades money. And I figured, why not? You know, it was a fun challenge, and I thought maybe I'd, tap into a new genre, maybe a new audience. But here's the thing, it didn't work. The story just didn't move me. It was hiding behind a pseudonym. I didn't promote it, and the bigger issue was I just wasn't into it. I wasn't writing from an authentic place. And if there's one thing that I've learned, both from personal experience and from talking to hundreds of authors on this show, it's that readers can tell when you're faking it. They can tell when you're faking it. They may not be able to put their finger on it, but they can feel when a story lacks some kind of soul. And that's why today's conversation with Kaira Rouda really resonated so deeply. Kaira's been through multiple genres, romance included. And, she's the first to admit when something isn't working, in her writing. And it wasn't until she leaned into the darker, twistier, messier parts of her own imagination that she found her true voice. And that voice led her to bestseller lists, award nominations, and a devoted following of readers who love her domestic thrillers. Now, her latest book is Jill is Not Happy. And let me tell you, I've read that book. Jill is definitely not happy. I don't think there's anyone is happy actually in that book at all. But that book is equal parts unsettling, but also very laugh out loud funny in a way that only Kaira can marry those two. And it's really proof that writing what excites you leads to your best work. Now, she's also a pantser, which I find really cool, meaning she doesn't go from a very structured or very rigid outline. So she's kind of discovering the book and the story as the readers do, which I think really comes through in her writing. So listen up, if you're a writer or even just somebody trying to show up more authentically in your own life, this conversation is for you. So sit back and relax and listen in as I uncork Kaira Rouda's story. Kaira Rouda is an award-winning USA Today and Amazon Charts best-selling author of contemporary fiction that explores what goes on beneath the surface of seemingly perfect lives. She joins me today on Uncorking a Story to discuss her career and latest novel, Jill is Not Happy. Welcome to Uncorking a Story. I should say welcome back to Uncorking a Story, Kaira.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Mike.
I'm happy to have you here, Kaira, and I'm curious, where does your story as an author begin?
Well, let's see. My first novel was published in 2011, I guess. So that I guess that's like the linear timeline. But I knew that I wanted to write from third grade. So I'm one of those people who always had the dream. And it just took a while for the dream to materialize.
So what happened in third grade, and what were you writing in third grade that was so impactful for you?
Well, I wasn't writing anything. Well, who knows? I might have been writing something. But what my teacher in third grade did is she had us write to the person we wanted to become when we grew up, which I thought was I still think it's just such a smart exercise. So I wrote to Robert McCloskey, my favorite author at the time, Make Way for Ducklings and Blueberries for Sal. And he actually wrote back, which is kind of amazing to me. And he said, Dear Kaira, I'm an illustrator, not an author, so pick better next time. But it kind of it sticks in your head, right? Third grade, I picked the wrong person, but also at least he wrote back, so that was good. The other kind of pivotal point I remember growing up, my dad was a professor and my mom was an elementary school teacher, so I was always surrounded by books and with a love of reading and books. And in fifth grade, my librarian, Mrs. Gardier, laminated my book Scooter and Skipper's Big Adventure, and she put it in the library for people to check out, which I still remember the feeling like walking in and seeing it on the shelf. So that was another pivotal moment.
Did you sign copies for anybody? I mean, there
was only one copy, so no. I wonder where that little book is now, but probably because the elementary school I went to is now like turned into something else. So I don't know what happened to it, but I did. Mrs. Gardier, until she passed away recently, was always following my career, and she'd write me a note after every book came out. So that was really fun.
That's so cool. That's so cool. But you mentioned your first book came out in 2011. Bridge the gap from third grade to then for me. It doesn't sound like you started off your professional career anyway was not as an author, was it?
Right. No, I went to school for English Lit and graduated without having really written anything for publication. So my first job was in journalism, and I wrote for newspapers and magazines. I loved magazine writing and did that for a while. And then I also always knew that I wanted to be in marketing. My dad was a marketing professor, so I kind of say I grew up with an at-home MBA in marketing. But I also always wanted to be Darren Stevens on Bewitched, not Samantha, the magical one. I wanted to be Darren, which is
wanted to be the ad guy.
I did, which is the weirdest thing, I know. So anyway, so then I like segued into advertising and public relations. And I like to say, I think I've written every format, like TV spots, radio spots, to like manuals for electronic company, like everything like that. Along the way, I was working as a vice president of marketing for an Inc. 100 firm and franchisor, and I was the first woman to ever have an office on what they call the wall, which means you have a door and a window and everything, which was, cool, and I liked that until I realized why I was the only woman who'd ever had an office like that was because they were horrible people, so I had to leave them and sue them for gender discrimination and sexual harassment. So while I was home doing that, my husband had done a roll-up of 14 residential real estate companies in Ohio, and he needed a brand to kind of put them all under. So I got to create Real Living, which became the first residential real estate company to acknowledge that women make or influence 91% of all real estate transactions. And back in the day, in the early 2000s, all the big brands, all they did was advertise to men. So it'd be two men standing in front of a yard sign, shaking hands, white men. And so we kind of changed the dynamics of the whole real estate industry by marketing to women, the consumer, and also the workforce in residential real estate. So that was a really fun time, tough time too. We grew to 22 states, and then the residential real estate crash happened. Anyway.
Yeah, timing is everything.
It is. So then at that point, I wrote a book for women entrepreneurs, which I never thought I'd write a business book because my dad was the business book writing person. And it was called Real You Incorporated, 8 Essentials for Women Entrepreneurs. And I wrote it, and it's a great book. It has like little segments about all these entrepreneurial women across the country. And I turned it in, and they're like, great. And it was one of those stories. You'll love this. And I keep forgetting to mention this, but I had an outline for the book. Nonfiction, you don't have to write the whole thing. You just write a sample chapter, which I found out. And then I had an agent. Someone said to me, like, this agent could help you. So I sent the proposal to an agent and to a publisher, which you're not allowed to do. And they both got back to me at the same time, almost right away. And luckily, I called the agent back first because I didn't know the whole process. And she's like, "Wait, you have an offer? No, I do that." I'm like, "Okay." So anyway, Wiley published it, and then they informed me that you have to go on the speaking circuit with nonfiction books. I'm like, "Oh no! Everything I know is in the book." So then I had to hire a speech coach, and that was a big thing. And then I'm speaking around the country to like thousands of women at a time, which it turned out to be really fun and daunting. And a woman at the Austin Women's Expo raised her hand and said, "So have you done everything you want to do? Have you lived the life of your dreams?" I'm like, "I still really want to write a novel." And she's like, "What are you waiting for?" I'm like, "You are right, it is time." So that kind of jump started me to tackle writing my first novel.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that. You got an agent, you got a publisher, and they both get back to you the same day. It just really doesn't happen that way.
No, it really doesn't, and it's never happened that way since, of course. But yeah, it just, I guess it was the right time and the right message for the time. So it was amazing.
But just talking about that experience with Wiley and then going on a speaking tour, writing that book and then going on tour. I mean, it sounds like that's another business you're running. You've had experience as an entrepreneur, in real estate, of course, the corporate experience you mentioned, which had an unfortunate outcome. But I mean, is being an author a lot like being a small business owner?
Oh, yeah, the parallels are incredibly similar. And in fact, on my website, I did a kind of adaptation of my entrepreneurial book, and I have Really You for Authors, because I do believe that we are all entrepreneurs. And the key, I think, to longevity in the world of authordom is very similar to the key in entrepreneurial businesses of all sorts. And it's about putting the real you in your brand, just like it is in real estate. It is being an author, and that authenticity breaks through. And that's kind of the primary message of the book, and also that I've been saying to authors for a while. I had a 2-year stint in romance before I found out that I can't write sex scenes. It's true.
How did you find out that you can't write sex scenes?
Oh my gosh, by trying to write romance. So one of my really good friends, Jane Porter, great author, she lives down the coast from me, and she's like, hey, I'm starting a romance imprint. Would you like to write a romance? I'm like, sure. I haven't ever tried that. I was kind of in the women's fiction world at the time. And so I went away, wrote a book, turned it into her, and she's like, what trope is this? I'm like, what is a trope? So we had that issue to hurdle. And then she's like, when we kind of need to see more of the romance, it doesn't have to be like sex, but, my people were like closing the door and, before they even kissed. So, yeah, but the end to the story is I found myself at the big conference that they had before. They don't have that anymore. And I just said, well, I could do a session about putting the real you in your author brand. And they said yes. And I was pretty new to the romance space. So at first the room was like maybe 10 people. And then people, I guess, heard about it or started coming in, because I think the message is really important. That's the way you break through in this industry, like any other industry.
I took a stab at writing romance once, and I had somebody read it, and it did come out under a pseudonym, which I will not divulge. But the first draft, this friend of mine read it and said, have you ever been with a woman before, Mike?
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, it doesn't appear as if you've ever had that kind of a relationship with I was over 40 years old at the time and had been married for a while.
It's really, really tricky, and it's a skill that you and I both do not have. So.
No, I don't. But it speaks to your point of authenticity, though, because I found that I just couldn't write it in an authentic way, the same way I can write comedy.
And the fact is, too, that you put a pseudonym on it. And I mean, I kind of like to say, I personally wrote romance under my own name, because if I'm going to put something out there, it is me. I mean, it just, it's not good romance, but it's my romance and it's out there. So I don't know. Yeah. But I do think we have to be who we are. And when we realize we can't write sex scenes, we have to go darker, is what I ended up doing.
But it takes a while, I think, to find out who you really are and to find your authentic voice as a writer. I'm curious, how did you find your voice as a writer?
Yeah, and you're right. It does grow. And it also comes from listening to yourself, right? So when I first started, my agent said they wanted a women's fiction book that was kind of like a nod to my nonfiction work. So it was about a woman who was having a midlife crisis and made a things to change list. And a lot of the same themes that were in Really You Incorporated found their way into Here Home Hope. And not that wasn't authentic, it was, but it was also more planned. And I've found over the years that I am a true believer in pantser, and I just can't. My stories are much more authentic if they just flow from whatever that is that a pantser does with a character and maybe a title, than sitting down and trying to plan like, oh, this will be a nod to this, or the marketplace is doing this. So I was writing I guess they call it Sweet Women's Fiction series about a group of moms who are going to take over the school lunch, because let's just face it, school lunches are abysmal. But while I was waiting for my agent to get back to me on that, this guy, Paul Strom, popped into my head, and he became the character in Best Day Ever, which became my breakout thriller. And this character was so present and so much encapsulated all of my particular horrible male bosses, it turns out, through the years, that his story just had to be told. I just had to tell it. And my agent at the time didn't represent psychological suspense or domestic suspense. And she's like, oh, I don't read that. I'm like, nuts, because I think I really want to write that. This is what I really want to write. And so eventually she read it and sold it. But yeah, it's nice when you find your space and place as a writer, because it just gives you more confidence. But I think all the trials of finding that voice are valuable too.
Absolutely. It's why, and honestly, it's why some people don't have their breakthrough until they're a little bit later on in years. I talked to so many people. I talked to somebody whose first book came out, she was 80.
Right.
But it couldn't have come out when she was any younger because she didn't have the story yet. So she needed that life behind her.
Completely agree. And I think the more life you have within you and behind you, the more fodder you have, and the more, I guess, perspective too.
Yeah. But I love the idea that you're not writing it because this is what the market wants. You're writing it from the point of view of this is kind of what fuels me. This is what I'm interested in, and not necessarily plotting out every point. It is more fun to be a pantser, I think, because you're discovering these characters the way your readers will discover the characters. Now, the flip side to that is when you learn something about a character later on in the story, you got to go back. You got to go back and add that or sprinkle it in or do some foreshadowing or something, because it's, the character on page 1 is probably much different than they are later on in the book.
Yeah, I agree. But it's still so much more fun.
Agreed.
I guess we're supposed to call it discovery writing now. Doesn't that seem so much more sophisticated than people?
Yeah, it sounds a little bland. But...
That's true. And probably not quite so authentic, as pantsing.
So let's talk about Jill and why Jill is not happy. What can you share with us about your latest?
Jack and Jill have been college sweethearts. They've been married over 20 years. Their oldest or only daughter, Maggie, is off to college. So Jill has decided they need to reconnect, and starting with a road trip to the Utah National Parks. And Jack, on the other hand, would rather do anything than spend quality time with Jill in a car on a road trip to the Utah National Parks. He is pretty much halfway out of their marriage, and Jill would like to take the opportunity at the beginning of the book to remind him that they have some shared secrets that should keep him more focused on her.
I have to ask, the names Jack and Jill has to be intentional, right?
Oh yeah, it was great. I usually start with a character, and Jill popped into my head while I was on a road trip with my husband in the Utah National Parks. So she appeared, and then her husband had to be Jack. Because I have always been fascinated why we tell nursery rhymes and fairy tales that are so terrifying to our small children and have throughout the generations. So if you read the Jack and Jill nursery rhyme, it's terrifying. And so it had to be.
Most of them are terrifying.
For sure. And you read them and you're like, wait, did I actually read this to my child? I probably did. And I had it read to me as a child, and so on and so on.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're so well adjusted.
Right.
I asked that question about Jack and Jill because I wrote something recently, and there are two characters who are in the same hospice setting. I don't know where these balloons are coming from. I have zero clue where those balloons just came from. Like, we're not on Zoom. I didn't know that this thing had that feature, but all of a sudden,
like that, and then all of a sudden, balloons.
Yeah, like what does this mean? Like,
that means balloons, I guess.
Either balloons or well, I won't go there. But not until I read the synopsis do I realize that I named these two characters Mary and Joseph, because they don't intersect in the book until the very end. And talk about, okay, your subconscious at play. The story takes place on Christmas Eve. So something was happening in my noggin. And then I'm realizing that I'm reading the synopsis and I'm like, oh my God, I did what? But that was completely unintentional.
Right. Well, some things just have to be. So there you have it.
Yeah. So I know your work, as I was reading in the intro, does, talk about things that are maybe not so pleasant all the time in these seemingly perfect relationships. Why is that something that you choose to focus on?
I really I love marriage thrillers and I love writing them and I love to read them, and maybe because I've been married so long, that might be why. But no, seriously, I think with these types of stories, in one sense, they're entertaining, hopefully, and you kind of can recognize. I mean, we've all been in that place, like in a car, and your partner, you're just angry, and it's over a stupid little thing, but you just want to kill them, but you wouldn't. But my characters could. So there's just that's kind of fun, and also I think when you read a marriage thriller or you watch War of the Roses or anything like that, it you kind of look at each other and go, well, at least we're not that bad.
That's,
Thank goodness we're not Jack and Jill. That's good. Yeah.
well, yeah, it strikes me you just came off of a big book tour with your husband, road trip. So no talk of killing each other or.
No, it went pretty well actually. And yeah, he does tell people he sleeps with one eye open, but I think he's in a good place now. I think he's fine.
If memory serves, he was a congressman
Yes.
or still is. I'm not sure.
He was. He is not any longer, but yes, he had one term in D.C., which was for me really fun because I got to explore all the Smithsonian's, and I was a docent at the Library of Congress. Whilst there, I just stumbled upon the widow's mandate tradition, which is the way most women have had a chance to serve in Congress in the last 100 years has been through a dead spouse. And I thought, wow, that's a great premise for a thriller. So I ended up writing The Widow about that, which, was very troubling to his team when I had to explain to them that I'm writing a story about a cheating congressman whose wife wants to kill him. They're like, no, we don't want that. I'm like, it's okay. It's fiction. Don't worry. Yeah. So.
But how was it in D.C.? I mean, I'm sure it's much different than Orange County, California. Like, what's it like really behind the scenes there? Is it as wacky as it seems to me?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, the answer is yes. On the base political level, it's just horrid and people yelling and, so divisive and all of that. On a more personal level, from a spouse's perspective, there was a lot of really warm and welcoming people on both sides who keep tradition going, and a lot of it is reflected in the book The Widow that I wrote, because I wanted to show there are some great bipartisan traditions that the spouses kind of hold together, that whether now the spouses are on the Democratic side, a very huge mixture of people and men, all of that, and maybe on the Republican side still a little more traditional. We all would get together at this place called the Congressional Club, and they'd have programs like how does this all work, like how do you and that's really comforting. And also there's something about tradition like that I think withstands a lot of this turbulence, as it has through the different generations and every kind of crisis that our country has faced. That's really what holds it together. And you've got all those great museums that remind you of the past and what everybody's been through to keep this country going. So I think that part of it I like to focus on. The other stuff is, it can be really mean and horrific.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems over the course of my adult lifetime anyway, it's certainly gone in a direction that's not positive. It seems like there's more division than.
Well, and when you're getting death threats against your dog, that's, here we get death threats against, me and my daughter and then our dog. I'm like, you want to, okay. Yeah, it's not what it's supposed to be, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that aggression will not stand. I mean, a death threat against a dog. I mean, whew.
Well, right. I'm like, what did she doesn't even speak. Like, how can you be against her? Anyway.
Yeah, she doesn't even vote.
Right. Yeah.
So I always like to ask a couple pop culture questions, Kaira. And I'm curious, you mentioned before you wanted to be like Darren on Bewitched, and I'm curious, new Darren or old Darren?
Oh gosh, old Darren.
Yeah, the OG Darren, right?
For sure. Yeah.
What are the
new Darren?
What are the chances now? Both Darren actors were named Dick. One was Dick York. I think that was the original Darren, was Dick York, and then Dick Sargent. Like,
right. Huh. That is interesting. Well, I have a fascination with those old Mad Men type people, right? And yeah, and so Don Draper now reappearing as your friends and neighbors. Happy watch that.
Oh my gosh, I loved it.
I loved it too. I'm so glad it's coming back. Yeah, and it is kind of what Don Draper wrought. He's living now, right? The whole consumerism of the suburbs and keeping up with the Joneses, and then now he's playing the character that's like collapsing under the weight of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pretty much watch John Hamm in just about anything. You know, I even like those Mercedes commercials he does the voiceovers for.
Okay, that's taking it a step too far on your John Hamm love. I think.
No, I know. But I love him in comedies. Like he's really good. Like his appearances on SNL have been fantastic.
Yeah, he's got just kind of that dry, measured delivery that, yeah, it's great.
Yeah. How about music? What do you like to listen to?
Well, you know, I don't listen while I'm writing because lyrics would get in my head and then all of a sudden be in my manuscript. I have to have kind of quiet. And, well, what have I been listening to recently? You know, it's funny, my son, my youngest, is a singer-songwriter producer, and he just went on he doesn't tour as a musician anymore, but he did just go on tour with two guys, Alex Sampson and Jamie Miller, and he played lead guitar. So my husband and I followed him around the country to all these venues, like in Nashville and Phoenix and all these places. It was so fun. So we were like groupies. So if you haven't listened to Jamie Miller or Alex Sampson, I believe you should. And Dylan produces or writes and works with both of them to create songs. So that's kind of fun too.
So it seems like creativity was passed down from mother to child.
Yeah, he's great. My daughter's a screenwriter too, so that's fun as well.
Interesting. Has she ever spoken to you about adopting any of your work for the screen?
Actually, we worked together, and I didn't know how to do final draft or anything, and you can collaborate. So she's like, Mom. Anyway, suffice to say, I was in charge of dialogue. She was in charge of everything else. But we did adapt The Next Wife, my book, and so that was really fun. And then we also wrote a pilot for The Favorite Daughter for a TV series, and it won a bunch of awards. She submitted to, I don't know, I'm not in the Hollywood side, but yeah, it was really fun working together. But very different styles of writing, because screenwriting, you have to be so precise, like each word. So she'll be like, just meditating over one word, and I'm already like 7 pages of dialogue later. She's like, where are you? It's like final draft. And she's like, you write too fast. I'm like, you write too slow. Just pick a word, any word, just put it down there. Yeah, but actually it ended up being nice because it was a good balance, or not really a balance, but a good counterpoint.
Well, that's the tough thing, being a novelist and then trying your hat at screenwriting. First of all, you've got 90 to 100 pages with which to tell your story. And the dialogue has to be pithy. It's got to be quick. You can't do the character development that you can on a bigger canvas, like a novel. And then the way you write your action has to be you got to be very, very mindful about the way you write your action, because you can't have like 2 paragraphs of action, or else a producer's just going to toss it in the, circular bin.
Well, right, because that's their job, right, to bring it to life. So you're just trying to write the cues that'll make their imagination be able to take it and run. Yeah, and that's what Avery does really well. So I'm like, you handle these, whatever those blocks of content that tell the director what they're supposed to do, and I'll just be down here writing the dialogue.
Yeah, very cool. So what's up next for you? What do you have something? I'm sure you've got something in the hopper.
I do actually. I just got the final round of edits for it, and it is called We Were Never Friends, and it is coming out the beginning of February 3rd, and it is about a group of sorority sisters who had something terrible happen senior year of college, so they've not kept in touch because of that, and suddenly they discover that one of their sons is marrying another one of their daughters, so they have to come back in this reunion that no one ever wanted, and then bad things happen. I don't have my pitch down for that, but it's really fun. It's set in Palm Springs.
Well, it sounds good to me. I mean, you come up with these like diabolical situations that, I guess don't go to therapy, because then maybe these things won't come to you anymore. I don't know.
Exactly. I just want to stay over here thinking about my crazy people, and yeah, they're so fun to write, and I love a good unreliable narrator myself, and yeah, they're creepy but also charming, hopefully.
Yeah. And I guess the trick is to find some kind of hook within all these evil characters that gives you a little bit of sense of, but maybe we could be friends, or like just to build a little bit of just enough empathy for them so that you understand them a little bit.
Yeah, that is the key, hopefully. And hopefully Jill and Jack, you like them for parts of their character, you can relate to them. And then sometimes Jill just goes a little too far. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was rooting for her. Help. Yeah, that's the best when people say, oh, I was laughing along with Jill and then she just went crazy. I'm like, yeah, well, yep, she does that. But then she can make you laugh too, so it's okay.
Yeah, well, mission accomplished. What's one question you wish people like me would ask you but never do?
Question. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. Favorite food.
Kaira, what's your favorite food?
Yeah, cheese is what popped in my mind.
Is there one type of cheese that rises to the top of all the other cheeses?
Okay, well, this is, yes, cheddar. And this will tie back to our road trip for book tour. So we're driving all over the East Coast and we are starving at one point. And I don't even remember what state we're in, but we see a Cracker Barrel. I'm like, oh, Cracker Barrel cheddar cheese. We have to go there. So we pull off the highway or freeway, whatever we were on, go to this Cracker Barrel, and I go to the front guy because we're getting it to go, right? And so he's the host, and I say, hey, can I just get some cheddar cheese? Because I've got a bag of pretzels. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, Cracker Barrel cheddar cheese, like it's the cheese of my growing up experience. Don't you know, you working at Cracker Barrel? He goes, I'm new, let me go ask. So he goes back, and he comes back and he's like, no, we don't have any cheese. I'm like, how could this not be a thing at Cracker Barrel? So anyway, I had to leave empty-handed on the cheese front, and now since then I've been having a craving for cheddar cheese, and I haven't gotten any yet, so I need to do that.
What's your take on their cracker cuts?
What is that?
So Cracker Barrel makes these cheddar cracker cuts, so they're pre-sliced, packaged.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
You get those at Cracker Barrel.
It's insane. You should write a letter.
Right? I'm like, wait, you guys, this is where I'm standing in Cracker Barrel with crackers and pretzels and no cheese is available.
So I did a research project for Bob Evans Restaurants once. And so as part of that, we had to do some competitive intelligence, which involved eating at a Cracker Barrel.
Uh-huh.
And, I don't know, did you choose to get something to eat there?
Just the pretzels and the crackers.
Just the pretzels and the crackers. Okay. They're known for like a country breakfast. I would stick to breakfast if you ever wind up in that similar situation again. But yeah, interesting experience. I don't remember if they had cheese or not. I don't think I was thinking about it at the time.
I know. Well, yeah, you were doing competitive research. Yeah. Bob
That's
Evans,
right.
Great breakfast. So good.
Oh, I love the Bob Evans breakfast.
Oh, yeah. It's so good. That's what I was craving after my first child was born.
Yeah, there you go. Love their sausage. Kaira, where can people learn more about you if they're so inclined?
Yeah, if they haven't already heard enough. I am at KairaRouda.com. It's my website, and then everywhere else, it's just Kaira Rouda. Facebook and Instagram are mostly my go-to. I'll periodically pop up other places, but those are the places I usually go.
Very good. Very good. I'll put all that in our show notes, and I'll say, Kaira, thank you so much for stopping by Uncorking a Story and letting me uncork yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Good to be here.
Thanks for listening to Uncorking a Story. If you'd like more information about today's guest or to find out more about Mike, go to uncorkingastory.com. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review us at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Tune in every week to hear Mike Carlin uncork a new story.